Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Another raft of Tasmanian travel restrictions will be lifted in a matter of hours. For more, we're joined live by reporter Sean McComish. Good evening, Sean. The shackles are off the Sunshine State.
Oh, well, good evening, Louise. Indeed, they are. From midnight, Greater Brisbane will be classified as low risk, meaning travellers into Tasmania can come here without having to quarantine. And most of Sydney will also be classified as low risk. Only those from 10 council areas, mainly in Sydney's west, will need to isolate if they arrive here. We had been expecting this announcement tomorrow, but the Premier says suppression of outbreaks in both cities has helped bring things forward. It also means that some travellers in quarantine in Tasmania will be able to leave after midnight.
It's been a challenging period of time. I'm pleased that we're now taking this step, but I'd like to stress, I think that at different times these types of restrictions will be imposed when there is a risk to Tasmanians.
With most travel restrictions now gone, the government can turn its full attention to next month's vaccine rollout. And today we also learned that travel and flights between New Zealand and Tasmania has again been pushed back to April rather than March. Louise?
A German national accused of murdering a 49-year-old woman has pleaded not guilty in a Launceston court. 27-year-old Tobias Pick was arrested after police uncovered the body of Jingai Zhang at a Wellington Street property on Boxing Day. He's been committed to stand trial in the Supreme Court later this year. There are concerns over the management of Ambulance Tasmania following the resignation of its acting chief executive. Matthew Eastham has stepped down to take a position interstate. Labor says it's concerned about the organisation's leadership following a massive data breach.
Now is the time to demonstrate leadership, and now is the time to have leadership. And if the leadership team is leaving for other positions interstate, this is just a nightmare scenario.
Ambulance Tasmania are doing a spectacular job looking after the emergency health needs of Tasmanians, and we just want to wish him the best. He's been a fantastic servant for the people of Tasmania.
The government says transitional arrangements are being finalised. A third hydrogen plant has been proposed for Tasmania as a wave of investment in the sector continues. The country's largest LNG producer, Woodside, is behind the pilot program with hopes to export nationally and internationally.
2 hydrogen energy projects are already in the works for Bell Bay, and today a third's been proposed as energy companies aim to satisfy a growing demand.
So there's no CO2 anywhere in that energy cycle, and that is the allure of and why customers want it.
A pilot program slated for later this year, focusing on production for the domestic market before later exporting.
It's something that we're very used to as a company. Woodside was kind of founded on domestic gas in Western Australia before it went into export, and we see the same vision here.
An agreement has also been signed with TasGas to carry the hydrogen.
It's about leveraging our unique distribution network, which is a plastic pipe network capable of delivering 100% hydrogen into Tasmanian homes, households and businesses.
The state government supporting Woodside's bid for funding from the federal government.
It's specifically backing in our Renewable Hydrogen Action Plan, and this is exactly the type of initiative that we've been looking forward to.
With Tasmania the greenest and most cost-effective place to produce hydrogen, this wave of investment is set to continue. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmanian News.
A little-known creature thought to be extinct has been found alive on Tasmania's remote west coast. There had been no sightings of the short-tailed rain crayfish in decades, but researchers have unearthed a small population near Lake Burbury.
This is the first time this tiny species of crayfish has been seen in decades. Presumed to be extinct, the short-tailed rain crayfish was first discovered in the 1970s, but wasn't recognised as its own species until 2006. By then, most of its habitat around Lake Burbury near Queenstown was underwater.
This crayfish species had not been recorded for just over 40 years, since the 70s and 80s, and so we weren't sure what the status of it was.
Hydro Tasmania launched an expedition to try and find the species as part of an environmental study. The mission headed up by Alistair Richardson.
We knew that the localities where the animal had been found were mostly under the water, but there was one that was still on the present shoreline.
Making the discovery under moss within 10 minutes of mooring their boat at the very first target site.
And lo and behold, almost the first bit we turned over, here was a crayfish. Heart suddenly clutched, is this the one? But we had to look very carefully because the differences between species in these crayfish are quite subtle.
DNA testing confirming the discovery.
It was very exciting, yeah.
Now work will be undertaken to try and discover just how many are left in the wild.
We'll certainly be discussing the outcomes of this project with Dipipwe, and with them and Alistair we'll discuss next steps.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmanian News.
A Somerset man is nearing the end of an epic run to raise awareness about a rare disease. Shane James experiences debilitating muscle spasms, but they haven't stopped him from running 880,000 kilometres across Tasmania twice.
Shane James is 1 in a million. That's the odds of facing stiff person syndrome, the rare condition he suffers from.
That's a bit of a funny name, but it's a monstrosity of a hellish condition that affects your central nervous system and autoimmune system as well.
The little-known illness causes debilitating muscle stiffness and spasms. He hopes to raise awareness as well as money for research into the syndrome. Despite battling it, he's now on a gruelling 880-kilometre run from the most easterly to westerly points of Tasmania.
Little research rather, or no research in Australia, so that's one of the reasons I'm doing this adventure.
The taxing journey is taking its toll.
It was very challenging mentally, to psych myself into getting back out there.
However, it's also been therapeutic. Running is the only thing he's found that helps with the pain.
It's still hard for me to get my head around that running actually helps this much, And getting out there and walking and getting amongst the fresh air and that gets the endorphins going as well.
With only 51 kilometres left, he'll soon cross the finish line. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmanian News.
A major redevelopment of parenting facilities in Launceston has been labelled a game changer by disability advocates. Construction on the $600,000 upgrade began today. Chris Duffy says it will make things easier for people with mobility issues like his son Jack.
It's going to have a hoist, so for carers, family and friends, they don't have to manual handle people because that can be really unsafe.
It's set to be the first of its kind in Launceston. There are already several in Hobart. Tomorrow marks 10 years to the day since Mona opened its doors. Few could have predicted the impact the Museum of Old and New Art would have on Tasmania. Tonight we'll take a look back at some of the highlights, plenty of them controversial.
As they lined up 10 years ago, few could imagine what waited for them beneath the ground at Berrydale.
Awe-inspiring, just fantastic. What he's done, it's just magic, it really is.
$75 million was sunk into the Marilla Vineyard site. The build-up had been hushed, but the opening was far from it.
It will spoil the experience if we let too many in at once.
The art was confronting, controversial, confusing, not to mention smelly.
The retrospective includes tattooed pigskins, bronze sculptures, and even a living, breathing human artwork.
The gallery was also revolutionary, mostly underground and connected by weaving tunnels. Ferries added to the sense of adventure. The museum quickly won over governments.
We really thank David Walsh for all the work he's done and acknowledge how important Mona is to the Tasmanian tourism industry.
A tourism boom never witnessed in the state had just begun.
And Mona staff say it's hard to pinpoint, but the museum is in the 1 millionth visitor zone.
Dark mofo and Mona Foma helped the museum soar higher, often into headlines.
When you've got those boobies hanging down everywhere, it's just a shot at women again, and I think it should stop.
The festival's exposing the state to a new wave of visitors.
Participants of all shapes and sizes dropping their dacks for Dark Mofo's inaugural nude swim.
Events often as successful as they were contentious.
Tomorrow, his 150 action performance will go ahead, despite months of opposition from animal activist groups.
Absolutely unnecessary, and it's obscene, and I don't think this is what Tasmanians want.
Other businesses felt the explosion of the Mona effect. Everyone was now paying attention to the island state.
Hobart's been the most exciting city in Australia to eat in for a weekend. Could be bad. And then you got Mona as well, so it's been an amazing explosion.
And the museum continued to dream big.
117 metres of very big ideas. But is it all just a tall story?
David Walsh points out where his new project will go. The final plans released today of what some have called a shopping trolley.
You know, it shouts. It shouts, I'm here, and maybe whether it has a right to be here needs to be investigated by the community, which is why I'm talking to you, I guess.
David Walsh spoke rarely in public. When he did, it was blunt and thoughtful.
Could be good, it could be great, it could be terrible. And without the capacity for it to be terrible, it won't be interesting.
Mona was among the first to see the storm clouds in 2020.
Unfortunately, we've had to call the Dark Mofo 2020 version off this year due to coronavirus concerns.
In March, the doors were shut, bringing the museum to its knees. Then the moment so many had waited for finally arrived on Boxing Day.
Yeah, it felt like a bit of an estate, so it was. But I'm sick of it being an estate. It needs to be, public property again.
The public turned out in droves, just like they had nearly a decade ago.
It's a really fun place to come to and be amongst the art and all of the displays and the wine and the food.
The pandemic leaving David Walsh with some soul searching.
Mona had a sort of a global aspect to it, but now I'm sort of thinking about community, so we're looking inwards.
What Tasmania's best known gambler does next is anyone's guess, but you can bet it won't be boring. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
And Mona continues to transform Tasmania, with this year's Mona Foma preparing to kick off in Hobart. Final rehearsals are underway for Second Echo's Ensemble Let Me Dry Your Eyes. The show, beginning tonight, will transform the Beaumaris Zoo into an immersive experience for audience members. Performers are excited to show off the work 3 years in the making.
I'm very excited. Please come in.
So we invite you to go on this journey with us, where there's a beginning, a middle and an end, but you find your own part in the story.
The festival's full Southern program will launch tomorrow. A cast of Tasmania's favourite characters is preparing to return to the screen, with rehearsals for Rosehaven kicking off at the Theatre Royal. Back for its 5th season, the show will start filming next month, with locations including New Norfolk, Geeveston and Longley. Without giving too much away, the show's creators say they're excited to be back.
We would not make this show if people didn't want us to keep making it. We didn't think it was doing a good job.
And some people on Twitter really don't want us to.
But there's been enough people that do want us to.
We've always had the idea that Rosehaven is a town that's very self-contained, and it's nice for the viewers when they see someone that they might not have seen for a few seasons. And what I can say about this one is we have got quite a lot of people coming back, some faces from earlier seasons that you will see again.
The state government has invested $500,000 into the season through Screen Tasmania. In local cricket, a rapid-fire century from Caleb Jewell has propelled North Hobart to victory in the Premier League T20 final. Jewell was relentless in a performance that will command attention from Hurricane selectors.
This was the shot that kick-started Caleb Jewell's assault. Sam Harbinson the target as the left-hander launched 2 more lusty blows in the same over. Denting the Blunston Arena roof and the university attack as he raced to a century of just 45 balls. He's knocked the centrepiece in a 10-wicket thrashing. Cyclist Richie Port has returned to racing down under, headlining more than a dozen Tasmanians at Adelaide's Festival of Cycling.
It was a bit hard with the quarantine, obviously, to train, but
I've done a good month in Tassie of training. It's good for training down there.
Fellow local Nicole Frain's efforts to power through the gruelling hills laid the platform for a third place in the stage. And finally, Mystic Journey was shaky in her first race in the Apple Isle in more than 700 days. The one-time winner of the All-Star Mile began to show signs of her promise in the final stretch at Mowbray, but was pipped by half a length by Blaze Forth. Garth Burley, 7 Tasmanian News.
A local sporting great has thrown his support behind a Tasmanian A-League team. Hosting a football clinic today, Alex Sizak is back in the state after a career as a professional sportsman in England. He says Tasmania needs better pathways for the next generation of players currently forced to pursue a career interstate or even overseas.
At 15, there was no professional opportunities in Tasmania, and the only choice was to go to Europe and go abroad. So obviously I went over when I was 15, and if there was a local team here in Tassie, that would be my number one option for sure.
In the city of Hobart, about 1 in 3 kids play our game, and the numbers are increasing. All that we're constrained by really is the lack of infrastructure for our game.
Premier Peter Gutwin says the establishment of a local A-League team remains one of his priorities for 2021.
Good evening. Bushy Park and Ooze our top with 28 degrees. Hobart, Burnie and Devonport 21 today, and Launceston 25. St Helens 27, Friendly Beaches and the Bass Strait Islands 24. Smithton recorded 23. Lyawini 22 and Lowhead 21. Strawn a top of 20. All fine and mostly clear around the state. Just thin wispy high cloud noticed up above today. A cold front has some cloud way back south of WA. Convective cloud and thunderstorms sit over northern Australia, Queensland and New South Wales. Tomorrow a cold front moves our way from the southwest. A high forms over the Bight. A tropical cyclone is expected to form off the WA coast and low pressure troughs linger as well. Winds mostly northwesterly, 15 to 25 knots, reaching 30 knots over the south, and they'll shift west-southwest during the day. Swells at 3 metres in southern waters. A strong wind warning from Cape Portland to St Helens Point and from Wineglass Bay to Low Rocky Point. 22 and a possible late shower for Hobart, a shower or two developing as well for Huonville, same number, and 24 for Campania. Launceston 27 and partly cloudy, Devonport 24, bit of cloud about, and 23 for Georgetown. Burnie a high of 23, a shower or two moving into Strawn, a top of 20 and 23 for Wynyard. St Helens tomorrow a high of 27 and partly cloudy, same for Swansea, 22 the top for Port Arthur, a shower creeping in later. UV peaking at 11, continuing our run of extreme UV. On Saturday, fine and mostly sunny right across the state, another fine, sunny and warm day on Sunday. A hot day on Monday, Swansea 34, Launceston and Hobart 33, ahead of a late shower and those showers flopping over into Australia Day as well. Sunny and 36 for Perth, fine in Adelaide, a sunny 26 degrees in Melbourne tomorrow. Sydney a possible shower and 31, partly cloudy weather over Brisbane. It's 18 in Hobart and partly cloudy at the moment, 21 in Launceston, 19 in Devonport. Now, we're marking a special anniversary tonight at the station. Our Director of News, Grant Wilson. Now, he's a person that maybe not all our viewers know, but Grant has been the head of this news bulletin and our team for more than 20 years. But more importantly, this week marks his 40th year at this station. Since 1981, Grant has held positions in practically all departments of this business, and he's also found love within these walls, happily married to our former program manager, Jilly. Look at the happy couple there. Congratulations on 40 years, Grant, or as we know him, Gruntus. And it would be a good career move for you right now, Louise, to say something nice.
It would. I'll say he looks exactly the same as when he started all those years ago. Thanks so much for that, Murph, and thanks for joining us tonight. That's all your news for this Thursday evening. Have a lovely night. Good night.